It's a Danish film starring Mads Mikkelsen.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And if any regular listeners of the podcast will know that, let's say we on the podcast have a certain predilections. Sean has a certain sort of there's people like he will watch pretty much anything with Florence Pugh in it, and increasingly Kaylee Spaney. With Sharon, Mads Mikkelsen. Mads Mikkelsen is where it's at.
All the way.
Anything Mads Mikkelsen, she will watch. So yeah. So Mads Mikkelsen. So you found a Danish movie with Mads Mikkelsen, staying on brand. Tell us about The Promised Land.
The Promised Land is film set in the mid 1750s, set in I think it's Jutland, which is part of Denmark, I understand. Basically, he's just coming out of the army. He had signed up for a 25-year contract with the Danish army. But I think I'm not sure of the sort of the geopolitical circumstances in the sort of 1750s in Denmark.
Yeah.
But he mentions about how he was in the German army. So I don't know if there was what the borders are or where all the sort of geography was, the sort of geopolitical lines were in those days. But he's come out of being in the army for 25 years, and the Danish king has basically promised sort of large rewards for anyone who can farm the heathland on Jutland.
Mm.
It's largely uncultivated. It's completely uncultivated. There's no settlements there. There's a few outlaws sort of living, in the wilds. And by outlaws, they mean basically if you've broken certain laws, you can be basically sort of expelled from society. So you can't live in town. So you basically have to make your own way. So often you find that there's these outlaw camps in. It's like being banished. So you can't have a job, you can't own land, you can't own certain property.
This sounds remarkably like a Danish Western.
Yeah, it's got aspects of it like that. So he decides that he's going to, using his army pension, he is going to create a settlement and farm the land, and to get this reward. Because what his circumstances are, he is the son of a nobleman, and his mother was a maidservant. Mm-hmm. And his father, basically, one way of getting rid of his illegitimate offspring was the boys went into the army and the girls were just put into service.
Yeah.
And so he has a desire, basically, to create his own legacy, to create his own name.
Yeah.
And so the reward for farming this land would be that he'd be given a noble title.
Okay. So when you say the girls are put into service, is that a euphemism?
No, service meant you work in a big house, you become a servant, you become a maid servant.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Chambermaid or something like that. Yeah, basically working for a big house, it was called just going into service.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
So euphemistically, a lot of the nobility or these big landowners, they did have a cavalier approach to their female staff. They regard them as being available.
Yep. Property that I can do with what I want. Yeah.
Yeah. They have no rights, basically, and that is a theme that runs through the film as well. About when he sets up he locates a piece of land that he believes has potential, so he could farm it.
Yeah, and
he's going to invite these people to create a settlement, but he has a time frame when he has to plant and harvest a crop.
Yeah,
and so when he starts to do this, he comes in opposition to the local landlord who regards the land as his. He doesn't own it, it's crown land, but the local landowner has basically had like this proprietorial rights over it.
Yeah. And
he is a man just like his father. He's an aristocrat. He's careless of the virtue of his maid servants. He abuses them. He is very hard on his tenants. Anyone who sort of like tries to do anything independently, he's brutal with them. He will have floggings, and he's quite a brutal landlord. And they come into this sort of head-to-head conflict. And some of the people who seek refuge with Mads' character, who's called Ludwig Carlen, they have there's an indirect opposition to this landlord, and so there's this conflict throughout the film as he sort of tries to sort of create this new life for himself and to earn his own the right to be sort of not just an illegitimate son of a nobleman. He wants to have his own title, his own legacy.
All right, cool. So far so good. But what did you think about it?
I really liked it. I thought it sort of ticked the boxes for me. Even though I'm not a fan of sexual violence in films, I don't regard it as being entertainment as such. I think 100%. They did it discreetly enough. You understood what it was about without actually being explicit, which I think is the way you handle that sort of topic. Mads is obviously, I just do. It's not really doing wrong in my eyes, but I do think he plays this sort of stoic, noble sort of character really well.
Yeah, yeah,
Who can sort of take a lot of punishment and just, he just takes it, and you know that he's tough and he's a strong man to the core. So he played that, he plays to his strength, and in this he certainly played to his strengths. I thought the supporting cast were really good. Scenery beautiful. The bleakness in the winter, was you could feel it through the screen. So for me, it ticked all the boxes. So I'd give it a 4 stars.
ooh, bang on that. Yeah, I think a couple of things with that. Oh, sorry. So if you wonder what that Oscar music was, that's the music that tells us you've been reviewing this thing for too long. Now shut up. But and then we go on for another minute or so. Yeah. Yeah, because the thing with Mads Mikkelsen is I think that there is a difference between Mads Mikkelsen in Danish mode and Mads Mikkelsen in English mode in the way
Yeah,
he is used, in the way he's used in sort of English, invariably Hollywood sort of American movies, and the way he is in Danish movies. I feel like you get a different prospect.
yeah,
It's yeah, I think he's allowed to be quieter. I find in Danish movies, and
absolutely. Yeah, it's not all what
yeah,
he says; it's what he does more than what
yeah,
he says sometimes.
yeah, he's allowed to be quieter in Danish movies, and he's allowed to not be evil because
Yeah,
because in Hollywood movies, once they bring Mads Mikkelsen in, it's like he's going to use that quiet stoicism thing. It's usually kind of like a shorthand for evil,
yeah.
but but it's yeah, but I find him interesting. I mean, the main film I've seen him in Danish is a film called Another Round, which I think I reviewed. I reviewed
Yeah,
a while back,
yeah,
but I don't think
yeah,
you've seen it about the four friends who decide that there's a certain level of alcohol you should keep in your blood the whole time,
yeah.
and then just try
That's
and
one of the few ones I haven't seen of his, but yeah, I've
yeah,
seen lots of others like Riders of Justice
yeah,
and The Royal Affair and Jungen and yeah, there's
Valhalla
quite a few.
Rising.
Valhalla Rising, one of our first. I think that's the first one I thought, hello,
Yeah, who's
and so
this?
so I'm more or less watched nearly everything he's done since then.
All right. Oh, okay, cool, good stuff. So that is you said 4 stars, 4 stars
Four
for
stars for me,
The
yeah.
Promised Land, 4 stars for Mads Mikkelsen's face.